all this stuff is intimately connected to each other. All right, Sue's gonna do her thing, and then hopefully we're gonna go outside, and we're gonna do it anyway, but we're gonna end up doing it in the museum, but we'll hopefully.
Ready?
Okay.
Okay, my beginning quote for today is from Georgia Hurd, and she says, "All writers fall in and out of the fire. We all have scars. Writing is not easy. It is a journey over rugged terrain of saguaro and prickly pear, and then with any luck into the valleys of still water and lush green." I hear some sort of nods of yes, that could be for a lot of us. We're going to talk today about some ways maybe that can help us write, add a little bit of color to our writing. But first of all, I wanted to say I looked over those brave souls that put their homework out there. I enjoyed your postcards. They're really good. I looked at your 3x5 notebooks, and I was wondering if anybody had to share any wish I had said that, or new words, or verbs. And I do have a wish I had said that for you. It's a comic from Baby Blues, and the little girl says, "Mommy, he's doing it again. Eek, eek, make it stop." And she says, "Hammy, give me that booger this instant." And then she says, "That's another entry for the old things I wish I hadn't said." But does anyone have a wish I had said that?
I have a wish I said that or thought, and I can tell you who wrote this, but I love it. It says, "We don't inherit our land from our parents. We simply borrow it from our children."
John Audubon.
Yeah. Who is it?
Audubon said that.
I love that.
Anybody else have anything they wanted to share? Oh, in the back, who's that? Okay.
This is from Jonathan Swift. "There is none so blind as they that won't see."
Death by planning.
Death by what?
Planning.
Death by panic.
No, planning.
Planning. Death by planning. So, anybody else have anything they want? Oh.
I like this one because I like Frank Lloyd Wright a lot. It's a quote of his that says, "Study nature, love nature, stay close to nature. It will never fail you."
Did anybody else have anything?
I have a follow-up to Frank Lloyd Wright. He wrote, "I believe in God, only I spell it nature."
That's very good.
Now, we didn't study together either.
I thought we would begin today with what we call it using simile and metaphor, only I like to call it tell and show, or show and tell. Remember as a kid in school, one of your favorite days was show and tell day? You got to bring something in. Well, there's two ways when you look at writing. It can either be to tell or to show. And if you tell, that can kind of be weak and generalized. It's a weak and generalized statement. Whereas maybe if you're showing somebody, it's giving them more concrete details. So a couple examples. She dresses sloppily. She wears her clothes as if they were thrown on with a pitchfork. So that, that's more concrete. You have a definite, vision. We have bad carpeting. Carpeting so ugly, my mother wept after it was installed. Again. And we had this one, I think, last week. I stink. I smelled like a rained upon nervous sheep. Again, it just gives you that concrete detail. Everybody's laughing. You have a picture. Aristotle says, by far the most important thing to master is the use of the metaphor. This is the one thing that cannot be learned from anyone else, and it is the mark of a great natural ability, for the ability to use metaphor implies a perception of resemblances. few of these literary devices, and I found that these are just some ways to add music to our descriptions. And an example that I find has a lot of these devices is a Sand County Almanac. So we're going to go through some of these, and I'll point out some of the sketches within the almanac that contain them. First, we have alliteration. This is the repetition of the initial consonants of words. So, in other words, darts damply, high and haughty, sandbars and sloughs, streak of sterile sand. Leopold uses these over and over, and in every essay that you read, you'll usually find at least 2 or 3 different types of alliteration. You have assonant, which is the repetition of the vowel sounds in the word. This is usually a harder one to find, such as sleek, beak, undeviating aim. Onomatopoeia, we call that noise words. It makes the sound of the action it describes, such as the tinkle of dripping water. This would be buzz, bang, words like that. Hyperbole, excessive exaggeration to make a point. In the monument up to the pigeon, they live forever by not living at all. And finally, we have anonymic phrasing, which is closely associating words of opposite meaning. Again, from the feathered tempest, or from monument to a pigeon, we have feathered tempest, waste sunlight, which is in March. But perhaps 2 of the most familiar, besides using a lot of alliteration, are the similes and metaphors, in which you can find in Sand County Almanac. A simile is a comparison made explicit through the use of the words like or as. So a rough-legged hawk drops like a feathered bomb into the marsh. The geese tumble out of the sky like maple leaves. A metaphor is a comparison between 2 dissimilar things where one thing becomes what it is being compared to. So already the imaginative transfer has already taken place. So Leopold writes, the autobiography of an old board is a kind of literature not yet taught on campuses, but any riverbank farm is a library where he who hammers and saws may read it. So what are we going to do? We're going to try to create similes and metaphors. And I have an example. I have an object. Oh, it's like a half, sort of a pine cone, or a prickly thing. I don't know what it is. And I ask myself these questions. I look like, I feel like, I taste like or as, I smell like, and I sound like. And then I filled it in. I look like a porcupine. I feel like a sticky pincushion. I taste like a resinous raisin. I smell like Christmas. I sound as ancient as an ivory bill. I then took these and made like a little poem. I fell from the sky heavier than hail. Even though sticky, I am not sweet. I am a chewy resin. If I could talk, my voice would resonate through the woods like the ancient hammerings of the extinct ivory bill. I am a wooden porcupine, preserved for all posterity. I took some of my similes and then transferred them to a metaphor, and I used both metaphor and simile in my poem. You can use this. Say you're out and about and you're wanting to describe something and you see something and you're like, oh, how can I describe that? How am I going to write about it? Well, just ask yourself these simple questions. Look like, feel like, taste, smell, sound. And when we were in the Smokies this spring, I was trying to describe something, so I said, I smell like clean laundry. I taste like a Laura lemon bar someone had on the trail. I look like a ballerina on point with my model tutu flared out in front. My voice is supplied by the black-throated green warbler, as is my woods companion. I feel like soft calfskin leather that has been passed on from generation to generation. I am the candles of forest lighting the way, a trillium luteum. I got a little crazy.
You got a little crazy with it,
Yeah, my thumb gets. So what I did was, though, I described the trillium using those answering those questions. Usually I give people a bag, we sit here and do this in class, but instead we're going to have an object. I have brought one large object that I want you to answer those questions about. And then I want you to find something as we're out and about that you will also answer those questions and write a little
outside,
essay, maybe whatever, if it's not raining.
even if it is.
Even if it's raining, the one object.
And we'll find our own stuff, or you'll have one
I
planted
have
out there?
one object for you.
And I have a suggestion for another one, but you can take it or leave it.
Oh,
You'll see.
okay.
I mean, you can't take it.
These are gonna be, we're handing, when we go outside or go indoors, we're giving you a piece of paper that has what we want you to do on it, so you don't need to write those down. Ann Dillard, in her book Teaching a Stone to Talk, uses metaphors and similes quite a bit. So then you can start to put these together, and I really like this one about the weasel, where she said I had never seen one wild before. He was 10 inches long, thin as a curve, a muscled ribbon, brown as fruit wood, soft, furry, alert. His face was fierce, small and pointed as a lizard's. He would have made a good arrowhead. There was just a dot of chin, maybe 2 brown hairs worth, and then the pure white fur began that spread down his underside. He had 2 black eyes. I didn't see any more than you could see a window. And I've given you, in your handouts on metaphor and simile, I've given you most of her essay about the weasel so that you can read that and see how she did it. Remember last week when we talked about reading like a writer, and we're using our tabs to mark spaces in the books that we want to learn about, or we want to remember I wish I had said that. Well, as Ralph Fletcher says, seek out books and writers you can learn from, reread the writing to figure out how the author managed to pull this off. We're going to take a little bit closer look at Sand County Almanac. This will be the book that we're going to see how we managed to pull some of these things off. Robert Finch said in the introduction to Sand County Almanac that no other single book of American literature writing has achieved such a lasting stature as a Sand County Almanac. And like I said, written by Aldo Leopold, and it was published after his death. We had the privilege of having one of his past grad students that worked at the survey. He also interacted with the family, and we said, Harold, we've heard from one of the daughters that this prose just flowed off his pen. He would just write, and it was ready to be published. Well, Harold was kind of crotchety, and he said that was just, you can fill in the blank, but he said no. He'd write, he'd ball up the yellow paper, throw it away. So this is what, in the essay March, as it originally appeared, one swallow does not make a summer, but one flock of honkers winging northward through a murky March thaw makes a spring, come what later, blizzards to the contrary notwithstanding. I probably would have put the book down after reading that.
That's the technical thing you wrote. You said it was in Sand County.
Well, it was that's the way March would have originally began. Here it's kind of a crummy duplication, but you can see he has here writing in the sides, things are moved around, things are crossed out. This is how it finally appears in Sand County Almanac. One swallow does not make a summer, but one skein of geese cleaving the murk of March thaw is the spring. And in your handout called Finding the Poetry and Power in Words, I've copied off from Wisconsin agriculturalist and farmer the When the Geese Return and Spring is Here. So you can see it, you could compare it to your copy of Sand County Almanac, which has March. Everybody received a copy of Sand County Almanac, and And in your copy of Sand County Almanac should be a folded up piece of paper. This brings us to my writing homework number 1, which is I want you to read the assigned essay that's written at the top of your piece of paper. You will be reading either March, The Monument to a Pigeon, or Illinois Bus Ride. I then want you to answer these questions that's on the piece of paper. A 2 to 3 sentence summary of your essay. I'd like you to then find examples of these literary devices: metaphor, simile, alliteration, assonance, onomatopoeia, hyperbole, and anonymic phrasing. And one example of I wish I had said that. So I want you to fill out the sheet of paper. You might have to hand them in, or we could be discussing, depending upon time constraints. for the
You
next-
said March, what were the other readings?
It's right at the top of your essay.
You just have one.
Well,
You just have to read one. A couple of them didn't copy very well. So you have the bus ride, or March, or Monument to a Pigeon.